gentlemen, let me ask you a question that make you uncomfortable. Have you ever wondered what some people stay poor generation after generation while others seem to create wealth almost effortlessly? It's not genetics. They see the strength of it. It's not geography. It's not even the economy. It's programming. You see, poverty is not just a lack of money. It's a mindset. It's a set of beliefs, habits, and actions that are taught, modeled, and passed down like a family heirloom. And the hard truth is this is poverty is learned. Poverty is not something people are born with it. It is something that is taught, caught, and passed down like an inheritance. From the moment a child is born, they begin absorbing the words, actions, and attitudes of the people around them. If they grow up in an environment where lack is normal, where money is viewed as scarce and impossible to get, where struggle is glorified and success is demonized, they will adopt those same beliefs without even realizing it. This is how poverty becomes ingrained, not just as a financial condition, but as a mindset. It becomes the lens through which a person sees every opportunity, every problem, and every decision in life. Think about a child who hears the phrase, "We can't afford that," over and over. To the parents, it might sound like an innocent statement of fact, but to the child, it becomes a script. That script tells them not to even dream bigger because there's no point. It tells them that money is hard to come by and only other people get to have abundance. Over time, those words build walls in the mind, walls that block vision and crush creativity. The child grows up believing those walls are real, and they live within them as if they were born there. Now consider habits. Poverty is learned through habits just as much as words. If children grow up watching adults spend every penny they make, avoid saving, or fear investing, those habits become their own default behaviors. If they never see anyone create value, solve problems for others, or think like an owner instead of an employee, they won't even know those possibilities exist. And yet, habits are not permanent. Just because someone learned habits doesn't mean they can't replace them with building ones. Poverty is also taught through emotions. When a person grows up in an atmosphere of worry, anxiety, they see the strength of even resentment. People who have money, they internalize those emotions. They begin to associate wealth with greed, corruption, or selfishness. They tell themselves that having less somehow makes them more noble or spiritual. These emotional associations create resistance to wealth even if deep down they want it. The reason this matters so much is because the human mind is programmable. What has been written to your thinking can be erased and replaced. If you learn to think small, you can learn to think big. If you were programmed to focus on lack, you can be reprogrammed to see abundance. If you were taught that money is evil, you can discover the truth. Money is a tool that reflects the heart of the person who holds it. Poverty is passed down like a family tradition, but that tradition can be broken. You are not bound by the environment you were raised in or the patterns you've repeated up to now. Every belief you hold about money was learned somewhere, and what was learned can be unlearned. Wealth is not a mystery reserved for the few. It is a set of principles and behaviors that anyone willing to learn and apply them can master. ChatGPT said, "What you believe about money determines you will experience with money because every action you take and every decision you make is filtered through those beliefs." If a person believes that money is hard to get, they will subconsciously avoid opportunities that could increase their income. If they believe that money corrupts people, they will sabotage their own financial success to stay good in their own eyes. They see these beliefs operate like invisible chains, pulling people back every time they try to move forward. The truth is that your external financial reality is simply a reflection of your internal programming. Most people don't even realize they have beliefs about money because they didn't consciously choose them. They absorbed them from parents, teachers, religious leaders, friends, and even television shows. If someone grows up hearing phrases like "money doesn't grow on trees," "rich people are greedy," or "will never be able to afford that," those statements sink deep into their subconscious mind. Over time, these messages become their truth. They don't question them because they sound normal. They begin to see the world as a place of scarcity and limitation, and every experience they have seems to reinforce that view. Beliefs act as self-fulfilling prophecies. If you believe money is evil, you will unconsciously repel it. If you believe you're not good enough to be wealthy, you won't take the steps needed to increase your value in the marketplace. If you believe making money is too complicated, you won't even try. And yet none of these beliefs are facts. They are learned perspectives, and any perspective that was learned can be unlearned and replaced with a new one. Think about someone who believes money is a reward for solving problems and serving others. That belief drives them to look for ways to add value to people's lives. It encourages them to learn skills, build relationships, and take calculated risks. Over time, they begin to see opportunities where others only see obstacles. Because they believe money flows from value, they focus on becoming more valuable, and as a result, money begins to flow toward them. This is not luck or magic. It is the predictable result of an empowered belief system. Contrast that with someone who believes money only comes through luck or inheritance. They sit back and wait for something external to change their situation. They may even resent people who have wealth, assuming they didn't work for it or that they cheated to get it. that resentment creates a barrier in their own heart against receiving abundance. Even if an opportunity shows up, they will hesitate, doubt, or dismiss it because it doesn't fit their belief that wealth is unattainable. Beliefs about money are not just mental concepts, they are emotional anchors. They determine how people feel about wealth, how they respond to challenges, and how they handle resources. A person who believes there is always more than enough will approach life with confidence and creativity. A person who believes there is never enough will operate from fear, hoarding what little they have and of avoiding bold moves that could multiply it. The critical thing to understand is that your beliefs about money were not etched in stone at birth. They were formed through repetition, environment, and influence. And because they were formed that way, they can be transformed the same way. The first step is to become aware of the beliefs that have been running your financial life like an invisible operating system. Only when you identify them can you begin to replace them with beliefs that empower you to create a different experience. A scarcity speaks in statements, while abundance asks better questions, because the way you use language shapes the way you think, and the way you think shapes the results you experience in life. When a person is operating from a scarcity mindset, their words are often filled with finality and limitation. They say things like, I can't afford that, there's no way to make this happen, or that's impossible for someone like me. These statements shut down the brain's creative ability to find solutions. They reinforce a belief that the situation is fixed and there's nothing more that can be done. Scarcity speaks as though there are no options, no possibilities, and no hope for change. And as long as those words are repeated, the mind accepts them as truth. Abundance speaks a different language because abundance sees the world as full of possibilities and resources waiting to be accessed. Instead of making limiting statements, abundance asks empowering questions. Instead of saying, I can't afford that, a person with an abundance mindset asks, how can I afford that? That simple shift in language opens the door for new ideas and opportunities to flow. When you ask a question, your mind goes to work searching for answers. It engages the part of your brain that solves problems and generates options. The quality of your life is directly the quality of the questions you are willing to ask yourself. Scarcity keeps people stuck because it convinces them they already know all there is to know about their situation. It says this is just the way it is and leaves no room for growth. Scarcity statements are like closing a door and throwing away the key. Abundance, on the other hand, is like walking into a room and opening every window to let fresh air in. It asks questions like, who can help me learn what I don't know yet? Or what resources am I not seeing that could change my circumstances? These kinds of questions spark curiosity and lead to action. They allow you to see opportunities that were always been invisible to a mind clouded by scarcity. A person who operates from scarcity tends to focus on what is missing. They notice every shortage, every bill they can't pay, every opportunity they didn't get. That focus on lack creates a cycle where they continually experience more of the same. A person who operates from abundance focuses on what is possible. They ask, what do I have in my hand right now that I can use to create more? They look for ways to multiply, to build, and to grow. This focus doesn't mean they ignore challenges, but it means they don't let challenges define their vision or their decisions, even in difficult circumstances. The difference between a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset comes down to language. One person sees a problem and says, this will never work. Another sees the same problem and asks, what would it take to make this work? That one shift in language can lead to different behaviors, and those behaviors lead to different results. The person stuck in statements accepts defeat before they even begin. The person asks questions begins to see doors where others only see walls. Scarcity teaches people to shut down their imagination because imagining more feels dangerous. It feels safer to lower expectations and avoid disappointment. Abundance invites people to expand their vision and engage their creativity because it understands that imagination is the seed of innovation and progress. The questions you ask yourself are like keys that unlock new levels of thinking. And when your thinking changes, your reality begins to change. As well, ChatGPT said, you don't attract wealth by chasing it, but by becoming the person who creates it, because wealth is not something external that you run after. It is a result that flows from who you are on the inside. Most people believe that if they work hard or hustle longer or get lucky, wealth will come to them. But this way of thinking leads to exhaust frustration because it focuses on doing instead of becoming. The truth is that money flows to value, and value comes from identity. When you focus on becoming a person of value, you naturally begin to attract the resources, opportunities, and relationships that lead to wealth. Chasing wealth often causes people to compromise their principles, burn out their energy, and operate from fear instead of confidence. They run after money because they believe they lack it, and that lack is what pushes wealth away. Scarcity creates desperation, and desperation is repellent. People can sense when someone is operating from neediness or fear, and they instinctively pull back. On the other hand, someone who has cultivated an identity of abundance does not have to chase opportunities because opportunities are drawn to them. Their mindset, habits, and energy signal to the world that they already handle wealth. And as a result, dopamine that remain locked for others, becoming the kind of person who creates wealth begins with self-mastery. It means developing discipline, integrity, and a strong work ethic, not because these things magically make money appear, because they position you to create value consistently. Wealthy people are not just people with money. They are people who have learned how to solve problems, how to take risks wisely, and how to persist when others give up. They have developed the character traits necessary to build and sustain abundance. Without those traits, even if someone receives money, they will lose it because their inner identity does not match their outer circumstances. Think about a farmer. The farmer does not chase a harvest across the field. He cultivates the soil, plants the seed, waters it, and protects it from weeds. The harvest comes as a natural result of the farmer becoming skilled at his work. Wealth works the same way. When you invest in growing yourself, your knowledge, your skills, your mindset, you plant seeds that will eventually produce a harvest. But if you ignore the soil of your mind and heart, if you refuse to do the inner work, you can chase all you want and still come up empty. There is a reason why lottery winners so often lose their money and end up worse off than before they received wealth, but they had not become the person who could sustain it. The strength of their thinking patterns, emotional habits, and financial behavior still shaped by lack, so the money slipped away. Contrast this to someone who starts with nothing but develops the mindset and habits of a creator. They see that even if they lose everything, they can rebuild because they have become the kind of person who attracts and multiplies resources. Becoming a wealth creator also means learning how to think long-term. Chasing wealth makes people impatient and short-sighted, leading them to grasp at quick fixes and shortcuts that rarely work. When you shift your focus from chasing to becoming, you no longer need a rush because you understand that the wealth is in the process. Each step of growth is building the foundation for something bigger. You begin to think like a builder instead of a beggar, and builders create structures that last. Poverty limits generations while wealth liberates them because the effects of financial mindsets and behaviors do not stop with one individual. They ripple outward and shape the lives of children, grandchildren, and entire communities. When a person operates from a poverty mindset, they are often unaware that they are passing down patterns of fear, limitation, and survival to the next generation. These patterns are rarely taught in words alone. They are absorbed through observation, repetition, and the emotional atmosphere of a household. A child growing up in a home where lack is normal learns to shrink their dreams before they even speak them out loud. They internalize the belief that struggling is inevitable and that prosperity is reserved for a select few. The impact of generational poverty is not limited to money. It affects confidence, creativity, and even identity. When children watch their parents constantly worry about bills, argue over expenses, or settle for less than they desire, those images leave an imprint on their minds. They may grow up believing that financial struggle is part of who they are, that is their lot in life, and attempting to rise above it is dangerous and selfish. These invisible chains can keep entire families locked into cycles of lack for decades. Wealth, on the other hand, creates a completely different legacy. When a person chooses to break free from poverty thinking and begins to build abundance, they are not just changing their own life. They are rewriting the script for everyone who comes after them. Children who grow up in an environment of abundance learn to see the world through a lens of possibility. They are exposed to conversations about investing, giving, and creating value. They learn that money is a tool that can be used to build, to bless others, and to expand opportunities. Instead of absorbing fear and scarcity, they absorb vision and confidence. Who creates wealth does more than provide financial resources for their family. They provide mental and emotional resources that are even more valuable. They model what it looks like to take responsibility, to solve problems, and to grow beyond limitations. They demonstrate that it is possible to start with little and still create much through discipline, wisdom, and persistence. This example alone can inspire future generations to dream bigger and act bolder, because then what is possible. Generational wealth is not only about inheritance, it is about mindset transfer. A large inheritance in the hands of someone like a poor person will eventually disappear. But even a small amount of resources in the hands of someone who has learned how to think like a creator can be multiplied and sustained. The difference lies in the habits, beliefs, and systems that are passed down. When a family learns the principles of stewardship, investing, and value creation, they are equipped to maintain and grow whatever resources they receive. The liberating power of wealth extends beyond family lines. It impacts communities because people who have resources are able to build business, fund causes, and create jobs. They can mentor others and teach them the principles that lead to abundance. In this way, breaking the cycle of poverty in one household can spark transformation in many others. Wealth gives people the freedom to focus on purpose instead of mere survival, to think creatively instead of fearfully, and to plan for the future instead of reacting to every crisis. ChatGPT said, if you can learn lack, You can unlearn it and master abundance instead, because every mindset, belief, and habit a person today was formed through exposure and repetition. No one comes into this world knowing how to fear money, avoid risk, or accept struggle as normal. These patterns are learned over time, absorbed from parents, teachers, peers, and the culture around them. The mind is like fertile soil, and whatever seeds are planted consistently will take root and grow. If seeds of limitation, fear, and scarcity are planted, the harvest will be poverty thinking. But soil does not care what grows in it. It simply produces what is planted. This is why transformation begins when a person realizes they can uproot what no longer serves them and deliberately plant seeds of abundance. Instead, learning lack is often subtle because it happens in environments where people normalize struggle. A child may hear statements like money is hard to come by, rich people are greedy, or we're not the kind of people who get ahead. These phrases sound harmless on the surface, but they form the foundation of a belief system that governs choices for years to come. The child grows up with an internal script that says dreaming big is foolish, taking risks is dangerous, and contentment means settling for less. These beliefs shape how they think, what they attempt, and what they avoid. They never question these patterns because to them, it feels like truth. Unlearning lack requires awareness and intentionality because the default programming of the mind does not change on its own. A person must first recognize that the beliefs they hold are not facts, but perspectives that were taught to them. Once they see the difference, they can challenge those beliefs and begin replacing them with new ones that align with abundance. This process takes time because old patterns are deeply ingrained, but repetition of new thoughts and behaviors can eventually override the old programming. Mastering abundance is not about chasing wealth or pretending problems do not exist. It is about adopting a mindset that sees possibilities where others see dead ends. It is about training the mind to focus on solutions instead of obstacles, opportunities instead of limitations. A person mastering abundance learns to ask empowering questions like, what can I create? Or how can I multiply what I already have? These questions activate the creative capacity of the mind and allow it to see resources that were previously invisible. The journey from lack to abundance also involves emotional mastery. People who are stuck in poverty thinking often operate from fear and anxiety, making decisions based on survival rather than vision. They cling tightly to what little they have because they fear losing it. And this fear prevents them from investing, growing, or stepping into new opportunities. Abundance teaches a different emotional state. It cultivates gratitude, generosity, and confidence in the ability to create and attract more. These emotional shifts are just as important as financial strategies because they determine how consistently a person can apply those strategies. Habits are another layer of learning and unlearning. A person trapped in lack may spend impulsively, avoid budgeting, and reject opportunities to invest in their growth. To master abundance, they must develop habits of stewardship, planning, and continuous learning. These habits reinforce the new mindset and create an upward spiral where small ones build momentum for larger breakthroughs. Each step forward strengthens the identity of someone who is capable of creating and sustaining wealth